Welcome back, Inebri-Arts. This is Andy of the Inebri-Art podcast, and we are back again at the Craft Beer Cellar on Main Street in Plymouth. If you happen to be in town and you have beer needs, this is the place to go to get that taken care of. And last year, I believe Andrew Bottari of the Plymouth Bay Cultural District came to us about taking part in something called ArtWeek. And at the time, I wasn't really sure what it was. We sat down and talked with him about it. And we ended up running 3 events as part of ArtWeek, and we had so much fun that we submitted, I think, like 6 this year. And to talk more about it, we brought in Sue Dahling Sullivan from the ArtWeek organization. So, Sue, can you just tell our listeners basically what is ArtWeek?
So ArtWeek is an award-winning 10-day creative festival where audiences are invited to do one-of-a-kind, hands-on, behind-the-scenes, learning-type events every spring. We try to make it affordable and accessible, but it's really an opportunity to shine the creative spotlight on the entire Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
And is this the 3rd or 4th year?
No, it's actually the 6th year.
Oh, it's the 6th year,
believe it
really?
or not. But we launched in 2013 as ArtWeek Boston.
Okay.
And it was a community initiative of what is now known as the Bach Center.
Yep.
But most people would know it as the historic Wang and Schubert theaters. Mm-hmm. And the center is a nonprofit, which most people don't realize.
Yeah.
We oversee the theaters, but we also run incredible education programs and community programs. And in 2013, we had done a big strategic planning session and said, how can we get people to know us beyond the 4 walls of our theaters? Mm-hmm. And ArtWeek was launched inspired by the popularity of restaurant weeks.
Okay.
But not by the pricing model of a discounted great meal for a discounted price.
Right.
We were actually inspired by research from the National Endowment for the Arts at the time, which said people are looking to, participate in culture in different ways now. It's not enough just to go and watch a play, listen to a concert, see an art exhibit opening. Mm-hmm. They're looking to get that extra access or experience.
Yeah.
And that informed for us what we call the ArtWeek Twist, so that ArtWeek wasn't going to become just another calendar listing, of which there were plenty of.
Right.
And the title originally was ArtWeek Boston. We started with 28 events. And I look back on those days and think, like Restaurant Week, we said we'll do it every spring and fall.
Yeah.
Which we did until spring 2017, when we had realized that we had not only expanded throughout eastern Massachusetts, mm-hmm. but we had grown from 28 events to 250 events.
Wow.
So we knew we needed to take a step back and rethink things, because it's a small, sort of nonprofit community program of the center. And we made 2 important decisions. The first was to go to an annual festival. Yeah. And our advisors said, listen, in New England, there's plenty going on in the fall.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And we knew also that even if places were quieter in the fall, they were really busy in the summer, which meant they couldn't plan.
Right.
So they said, your time in spring is ideal, which we always look at the last weekend in April to mm-hmm. the first weekend in May. It's after the Boston.
We shouldn't get any snow.
Yeah. Although last year we did in the Berkshires.
Yeah.
But they said it's after Boston Marathon.
Right.
And it's after school vacation week. So it was a great window of opportunity. So we decided to go with an annual spring festival. The second decision was we were getting inquiries from central and western Massachusetts who said, mm-hmm. can we join in? And we were like, well, we're not really set up to, handle the quantity and marketing. So we rethought the model, and last year, spring 2018, was our first year going statewide.
Okay.
And it astounded even us. We ended up with over 500 events in 100 towns and communities, and this year we're off to another record-breaking year for this spring.
And Plymouth ran how many last year?
Plymouth ran about 24 last year, and I think they're going to have about 30 this year.
Nice.
We're still in the midst of finalizing events and tying up things.
We've gotten about half our events approved.
Yeah. It's, I always laugh with our team because they come on board. It's a seasonal team, and they come on board in January. And as much as we tell people beforehand, get your application in early, we'll have more time to review.
We were totally last minute.
Yeah, well, you weren't alone. You and hundreds of your friends across the state, which meant that last week, and so really a few weeks ago, we've been deluged with hundreds of applications that we're reading through, tweaking, approving, just getting everything finalized before the full calendar, which will be announced and unveiled April 1st online at artweekma.org.
Nice. And you mentioned something about the cost of Restaurant Week. So is this geared to be cheaper or free? Like what? So
our pricing strategy is a little different. First off, while it is produced by the Bach Center, our presenting sponsor is Highland Street Foundation, which many people might know better for underwriting Free Fun Fridays during the summer, which is 10 different weekends or Fridays of free access to over, I think last year they had 100 museums.
Oh, wow. I have heard about that.
It's all about access and affordability for people. And that's why they became our presenting sponsor day one. Because we jointly believe that arts, culture, and creativity should be affordable and accessible to everybody, no matter what your age is, your socioeconomic background is, where you live, but that access and affordability is important. So we structured our events to say it could be free or up to $50. People can charge. We don't get involved with that. We don't take a cut or anything, but we also know that some experiences need to break even or make a profit. That said, this year we'll have more free events than we did at any other time, but we've always had over 60% of the events are free.
Oh, that's awesome.
And this year, only 10% will be in the $25 to $50 range.
Yeah.
So, and I think this year we're going to come in at 70 to 75% of the events are free. So it's an incredible bargain.
That's outstanding, yeah.
To
and that's
experience
not even just for one weekend. Even week is a little bit of a misnomer because it's about 10 days.
Right, it's 10 days.
Yeah.
I'm always tell people, this is a budget-friendly reason to go out and take a staycation or a mini vacation.
Yeah, Fish and I both took the week off from our day job.
Oh.
And we figure we're going to be doing plenty of our own events, and maybe we'll have some time
maybe
to
go
run into
to
other
explore.
things.
There's a lot of really cool things happening. It's a good reason to road trip.
Yeah. Well, what kind of events have they had, and do we expect to see this year?
Well, with over 600 events, it's hard to choose.
Yeah.
I think...
Well, just which one's your favorite?
No, it's like asking, do you have a favorite child? But... if
I had 600 kids, I'd have one favorite.
Oh, well, I have to say, there's there's something for everybody. There's going to be artist demos, artist talks, special tours, demonstrations, workshops, street festivals, fairs. I mean, really everything. But I'll give you a little sampling of some of the more non-traditional ones that might, spark some interest from some of your listeners. Salvador Dali, or a James Audubon-inspired dinner event. Pop-up performances along a bike trail or along a commuter rail stops.
That's interesting.
Poetry knockdown or Pakistani art and music bus event. Video game design or interior design inspirations. Bird decoy carving demo or launch of the first New England Jug Band Festival. Art making on a historic boat tour or at an iconic lighthouse. VIP curators archive tour at a world-class museum, or meet the sculptor at his sanctuary tour, which includes an 80-foot fire-breathing dragon.
Oh, that sounds cool.
I know. Making music or making public art. There's a lot of great public art events. The list goes on and on. As you know, if I could, I would do it all. It's all so interesting and such great fun things.
And it's kind of a leading question because I think I know who you're talking about. But you mentioned one about a boat side of iconic lighthouse. Is that the same people that did it last year?
So the boat tour will be right here in Plymouth Harbor.
Which is Plymouth Bay Cruises, friends of the show.
Which I think it's just such a brilliant idea, is to go out and invite people to bring either their, cameras or their sketch pads or their paints, and they'll stop and at inspiring sites with lighthouses or beaches or ocean, and it's sort of like an art plein air on the water. That said, there is a lighthouse on the Cape that will be doing a special digital photography session. And they'll open it up specially to do the walk to the top too during the year. So, coastal Massachusetts is going to have a lot to offer. Cape Ann has really come together. They're going to have some amazing things in Rockport and Gloucester. Plymouth, of course, continues to be an incredible cultural district that really is shining the spotlight as a leader in sort of Art Week and how communities can come together and really bring creativity to the forefront. We're seeing a big growth on the Cape and Islands, which will have over 100 events
that's great.
for this Art Week. But, I wouldn't, don't underwrite missing out on Central Mass. There's some great hotspots there. Worcester is going to have a ton of stuff, and that is a very creative city that's got great stuff going on. Amherst is going to have a lot of really cool things.
Oh, nice.
And then, of course, the Berkshires.
Yep.
I mean, it's just, a perfect time to get to explore a lot of the Berkshires before the summer crowds come in.
Yeah. Do you get a lot of traction in the Beverly area? I know there's a strong art community up there.
We've seen some.
Yeah.
Some from Beverly, definitely from Lynn and Salem, too.
Yep.
And in fact, Lynn and Salem are the ones that are working together for the first time to do that commuter rail pop-up on the platforms.
That's really
which
interesting.
I love,
yeah.
and they're calling it transportation.
Oh,
how creative, right?
Yeah, and that to me, that's the interesting part. Is it's these businesses that you wouldn't normally associate with art that are finding their way into Art Week.
Yeah,
and in their own way, helping to promote the arts
And that's sort of our philosophy, is that it's not just about artists or cultural nonprofits, that there are a lot of creative businesses, a lot of creative communities that the sort of creativity can shine during Art Week. And we love to see these kinds of really unique collaborations bring that to the forefront.
Nice. And in there you have a video game I'm sorry, I can't remember exactly what it was, but a video gaming event, which we'll talk about the history of video gaming, and then there's going to be an interactive sort of party that's up in Lowell. So it's clearly something, there has to be something for everybody.
Yeah.
For every age group.
Absolutely. I would say with 600 events, and you can tell the kinds of varieties, I suspect somebody could find something that would appeal to them.
That is reasonably close. And Massachusetts isn't that big of a state.
Absolutely.
Now, is this something in the future that you see growing beyond Massachusetts? Is this like a Art Week New England kind of?
People have said, I never would have thought it would have gone Art Week Mass.
Right.
Now people are like, well, maybe it should go Art Week New England. Maybe it should go Art Week National. Sort of, it's got a lot of similar components as, say, a first night.
Yep.
Kind of event, except it's a little more grassroots and less formulaic, so that people can sort of make Art Week what they want or what fits for their town, region, or state.
Yeah, and it's a really open. It features creativity because part of it is being creative about the event that you're doing.
Right.
You know, and
it's a pretty flexible format. We think.
Yeah.
The hardest part is funding for a free festival. We've seen certainly festivals that were birthed in Boston, like a First Night or a Boston Harbor Fest, who have, in their heyday, were iconic national nationwide.
And now I feel like everybody has one.
And then the Boston ones sort of either went bankrupt or downsized.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so they're nothing like they were. So we've been very careful about keeping the framework very modest and not cash intensive. That said, we do, we're always looking for sponsors to underwrite it because it really is something that's all inclusive.
Sure, yeah. And so I remember with First Night you had to buy a badge. This you don't need to do anything with Art Week to attend.
No.
Maybe the individual
Each
group
individual
itself.
event gets their own web page. So when you search in the calendar, you'll go and you'll find out if there's an RSVP link or if it's just open hours. There'll be a map. You can go back to their website, but who knows? Maybe we will end up, not as a ticket, but maybe doing some kind of fundraiser where you could buy something that was inspired by somebody who made an art thing. But we're not there yet.
Yeah. And last year, were there any events that you thought were really unique that maybe not returning this year?
Absolutely. There's a lot of unique events that I always tell people, do not take it for granted that things are going to come back, because one of the great things and the challenges about Art Week is you don't know what it's going to be until April 1st because new events come out. A lot of people don't repeat things. Last year, a really striking event for me was on the Boston Common.
Yep.
And it was done by a local photographer in Medford, I believe, who partnered with some major organizations, including the Department of Immigration, a couple of museums. And he did huge projections of portraits that he had taken and he did them on the willow trees in Boston Common. And they were of different immigrants who were living or working in Boston.
Yeah.
And it was called #StandWithImmigrants. And the event not only was these beautiful tree size, massive tree size projections, but the living people, the portraits who they had done were there so that people could meet the immigrants who were being projected and hear about their stories one-on-one.
Yeah.
Which I think was just incredibly inspiring. That photographer is not doing that kind of an event this year. One year we had a percussionist who was quite innovative, and she partnered with somebody in Faneuil Hall, and this was in her early days, and with a bar, I guess, or that's not there anymore, called, was it Fire and Ice or an ice bar? Actually, it was the Frost Bar. That's what it is. So you would walk in and you'd pay good money to go sit in an ice room, basically, and have drinks.
Yeah,
and,
I saw
and
one of
weird
those
coats.
when I was out in
winter.
I was out in Vegas recently, and I saw one of those.
Yeah. So her Art Week event was she made percussion instruments and did original concert work inside, and they were all made of ice. And so it was a musical sort of ice concert.
Huh.
And she's gone on to be very successful, has recordings, played with Yo-Yo Ma, all kinds of things. So
just in this past year?
No, that was a couple of years ago.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. We also had an artist, a woman, a retired teacher on the Cape who did a project called The Key Idea. And she did a couple of years of events with us. And she started with some on the Cape. Then we moved her over the bridge. We introduced her to some people. She made, things happen. This last year, she brought that idea to the Smithsonian and was part of the Family Day celebration.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
Yes. So you just never know what you're going to find or experience during Art Week.
And you never know who you're going to meet either. We have made so many friends in just the 1 year that we did it.
Yeah.
And everyone was so supportive, and they had their own event and helped kind of cross promote and make connections and push the whole initiative. Do you see the communities? Obviously, you have more communities now than you did prior, but are they really getting behind it and pushing the advertising as well?
We saw a big growth this year in our partners. We have a network of community partners. So when we decided to go statewide, we started with getting 2 statewide partners, the first one being the Mass Cultural Council. They oversee over 320 odd cultural councils, as well as up to 47, I think, cultural districts.
Yep.
And our second partner was the Mass Office of Travel and Tourism, because they had struggled with really how to shine the spotlight on the creative commonwealth, because every day in every town across the state, there's something great going on. So ArtWeek allows for a nice 10-day, nice package to do it. But we knew even beyond those partners, we needed more. Last year, we had 72 community partners. It could be statewide partners, regional partners, or community. This year, we have 138, so we've almost doubled it.
Wow.
Which is really exciting. So more and more people are jumping on the bandwagon, knowing that a rising tide lifts all boats. I mean,
sure, yeah.
Especially in this sector, you have to work together. And you have to believe that if everybody's doing something, that the whole community will rise. And I think Plymouth is a great example of that. And it was really inspirational to me to see how, you had some dynamic leaders at the cultural district sort of level saying, let's do this. And I was just doing a presentation with Melissa Kenny, who also works in the cultural district. And she was saying, gosh, I remember last year we hooked up at January, and our deadline was end of
really
February.
Short.
It was a fast and furious, intense turnaround. And yet, amazing events happened. And, the group that you're a part of, I loved how at the end everybody sort of celebrated and said it was a lot of work. But
we got together and had a drink, I think.
Yeah, I know. I was like, this is my kind of group.
I think we're a little burnt out, and I'm sure
it
this
is
year,
really intense. But good training for Plymouth 400 when it's going to be intense for a lot longer.
Oh, yeah. And that's one of the things that I love about this area, and I think a lot of other towns can benefit from it, is every event has everybody's support. Everyone will kind of pitch in where they can, because they know people are going to pitch in for their event, and it's kind of like, I know it's a tourist town because it's historic, but there is something going on almost every day.
Yeah. And great stuff. In fact, you should talk a little bit about some of your new ideas for this year.
Some of our new ideas?
Yeah. You had great ideas last year. You can talk about those too.
The one that I found probably the most outside-the-box interesting event is the stave painting at Barrel House Z.
I love that.
Which I learned what a stave was because we were at Barrel House Z around Christmas. We were running like a artist holiday event, and one of the people from the Barrel House was like, we'd love to take part in Art Week. Actually, I think I brought it up. I'm like, you guys doing anything for Art Week? And then it became, they're like, well, what can we do? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, what is Barrel House Z not necessarily known for, because they're known for their beer, but like, what can we do to this distinctly Barrel House? And they're like, well, we have all these old barrels, and we have tons of these staves, which for anyone, that's the boards that make up a barrel. And she's like, can we do something with those? I'm like, yeah, sure. And so we're going to be doing like a sign painting, because you see a lot of those interior design companies with simple signs that say hope or your last name. So we're going to have some water-based stains. I think we're going with. We're going to not do oil, because I feel like that'd be a mess. And the templates to kind of lay out the letters for whatever you want. And
I love that idea. I think it's just going to be...
It'll be very interesting.
Yeah.
Over the course of the next couple weeks, we have to make a demo one. But I think it's going to be relatively easy, and I think a lot of people have a lot of fun about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then
you're doing the piece,
the community art project, which that hasn't been approved yet.
Oh, sorry.
No.
Well, let's talk about the potential.
We talked about it, and I'm pretty sure that this one will go through. so we wanted to do a piece that would display for a year in Plymouth, is what initially the idea was. So we're going to take an old-timey image of Plymouth, maybe of Main Street, maybe of kind of down by the Rock area. We haven't picked the image yet. And the idea is basically from a high school level art project, which I think most high schools tend to do, where you take the image and you grid it into squares, and then you cut it up, and everyone gets a square. And then you recreate that square onto a larger, I think we're going to go with like 6x6.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to do it in whatever way you want. We even have someone that's going to cross-stitch
a
square.
That's impressive.
Yeah, she's like, I need it soon. I'm like, I'll do what I can. And then we carefully number them, and so we don't make it too much like a jigsaw puzzle. And then we reassemble it into a final piece, and it's going to unveil on the last day of Art Week at the Plymouth Public Library, where it's going to hang for 3 months.
Cool.
And then we're going to try and find other public areas in Plymouth where it can hang for the rest of the year.
I think that's so creative and so exactly what Art Week's about.
Yeah, and everyone's going to be able to, you don't have to be an artist.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you can even kind of select your square based on your skill level.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So if you kind of, you're a little unsure, take us with a lot of sky in it,
right,
or something simple.
Yeah.
And if you want a challenge, you can pick, one with a lot of detail in it, and kind of go from there. And we expect to have some in color and some in black and white. And I think what we're going to do is next to the piece we'll hang the original image. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. With kind of numbered like over each square, and then like a list of all the artists that participated.
Oh, great. Great.
So everyone can get the credit they deserve. But I think it'll be interesting.
Oh, I think it'll be wonderful and really cool.
Logistically, we're still kind of figuring it out.
Details.
Yeah.
Don't tell me that.
See? Yeah, that's how I am. Fish is the one who's like, well, how's it going to hang? I'm like, I don't know. We'll figure it out.
Well, and it should be a nice compliment. I just learned today that the Plymouth Cultural District sort of used the theme of those vintage photographs and wrapped utility boxes.
Oh, yeah, that's been done for a while. Yeah.
So it's sort of a nice, sort of step two,
it'd be
going
a nice tie
big.
into it. Yeah. And there's so much going on art-wise down here. I'm sure you're familiar with the lobster crawl. Mm-hmm. And so coming up next is going to be the scallop roll.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what I heard.
Yeah. But they just sold off, they auctioned off the lobsters.
Yeah.
And that's when I mentioned I was in Vegas, I had friends of mine texting me, letting me know how much my lobster was going for. It's crazy. Do you feel that there's that kind of... Do you feel Art Week is helping bring that kind of art to communities all year round? Is there more of that stuff?
Absolutely. I mean, what we did last year was try to capture some of the stories of Art Week, maybe 10 days, but the Art Week effect lasts all year. There are stories like Franklin, which, is a suburban town. Yep. They were amazing last Art Week. They had a volunteer head of the Cultural Council who got the whole community together. The mayor launched Art Week and announced, because of the incredible community surrounding Art Week, that he was increasing the art programming budget.
Oh, that's amazing.
Out of the town hall.
Oh, that's awesome.
In Harwich, they had... there's a 100-year-old middle school that had been closed. Mm-hmm. And the town had said, you have a year, make it into artist work spaces. And one of the staff there said, when she heard about Art Week, again, sort of later, said, we can do some programming during Art Week to make it more than just a place where artists are making art, but to bring the community in. They did some amazing programming. And during Art Week, there was a town council meeting. So to hear where this school was as a cultural center, they went before the town council and said, listen, we've had all these successes with artists, but we're having huge success with Art Week, and the town council extended the lease for 5 more years.
Oh, that's awesome.
And this year, they already have done a lot of planning with their Chamber of Commerce, so that now art isn't just a standalone, afterthought of using a building, but it's really helping to shape the town and the community. So we really are seeing that Art Week is, igniting sparks within communities, within new partners, within neighboring regions. So you never know where it's going to lead, but we know that it has a lot of different kinds of success stories.
Yeah, and I'd love to see more of those art spaces around. I mean, they're here and there. There's an old sandpaper factory in Rockland. That's all artist space with a gallery, and they do open studios. I know there's one in New Bedford, and there's others around. There's a maker space in Somerville, I think, called Artist Asylum.
Yep.
And it's not so much of art tends to be solitary.
Yes.
And when you kind of collect all people together like that, you end up sharing ideas. You poke your head in to see who's in that gallery or studio, and you start talking and collaborating. I think that's
really
thing.
what Art Week is like. Makes it come alive in a different way. Open Studios has even been around now for a long time, and they're sort of. There was recent research that said, well, now people are used to open studios, so they're not seeing people go that much. And that's where Art Week can fill in the blanks, and say, no, come back, because we'll do a half-hour workshop, and you can make something, or I'll show you a demo instead of just come in, I'll be doing my art, and I'll talk to you.
Yep.
So
I know at Inky Hand Studio, I'm going to plug someone else.
Yes, yeah.
That she did it for Winterfest, and I believe she's going to.
She's doing. I think it's a do-it-yourself Mother's Day cards for screen printing.
And so basically, you go in, and the kids get to kind of to pull the ink onto the
which
work.
I think is an incredible experience and opportunity.
Yeah, because it's not a common art form. It's very commercial. I mean, it's. Pretty much any business you work for has T-shirts, and those have all been screen printed. And it's a great way for the kids to kind of see how it's done and get a basic idea and maybe kind of catch the bug.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I think that's going to be a cool one.
Yeah, there's quite a few cool ones that are going to happen in Plymouth.
Yeah. And the other thing is, so we talked about there's a lot of visual arts, and we mentioned music, but it's really any art form? Are there like dance ones? Is there
absolutely.
Theater ones?
Yep, all of the above. I think for dance, we have everything from Celtic dancing to ballroom dancing to dance pop-ups on a community bike trail. There's an open rehearsal for urbanity dance in Boston, so it really runs the gamut. Theaters are doing a lot of artist talkbacks or open rehearsals. There's one event I think that's going to be learn about how to do set design.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. There's improv things for music. I mean, so it's really a little less traditional, but also it can be the more traditional. There's an event in Fall River that they're repeating from last year, and it's a theater, sort of interactive dinner theater featuring a piece with Julia Childs. And they're going to have the artist do a talkback Q&A afterwards.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so it'll be really fun. So really, it just runs the gamut, but really one of a kind sort of unique opportunities to sort of get that one extra sort of peek behind the curtain, if you will.
Do you get any applications for more like movie and video type things? Is there stuff for those?
We have some film fest. We have which filmmakers will be taking questions and describing their films. I think there's one in Arlington. The Independent Film Festival is doing something. There's a film festival on the Cape that's doing something special. There's a couple of documentaries that'll be shown.
Oh, nice.
So there's a wide range of film. There's some design things, architecture, talks and walks.
Oh, architecture! I didn't even think of that.
Yeah. Some historic walks and talks, some newer kinds of things. I'm trying to think. There's some celestial art making things. There's lantern making. So it really, it's so diverse. It's really astounding. And then there's genre bending kinds of things. There's like art incubators for social justice issues, where people might be writing poetry or making community art in response to something that's going on in the world. There's a lot of women's issues this year as the Year of the Woman. There's a piece on Take Your Seat that's a exhibit around Shirley Chisholm at the Edward Kennedy Institute, where you can be part of creating this public art piece, but talking about what she did. There's a Mary Oliver tribute at BUR's new city space with mass poetry. And there's something at Mass Historical Societies on the history of women's suffragette graphics on posters and everything.
Cool.
So there's lots of sub-themes, lots of climate related art, about rising tides, of implications of pollution and all kinds of things. So it can be very thought-provoking.
So there's a lot of, like you said, this is grassroots, and there's a lot of, small companies, artists, and whatnot that take part. Is there like a large corporation, like has Coca-Cola been like, oh, we want to do, and is that sort of thing welcome, or is it more just keeping it grassroots?
No, we welcome, larger organizations as well as individual artists. In fact, Wegmans Natick is doing something this year as part of it. I'm trying to think of other larger. Last year we had a construction firm in Boston do something on virtual reality and building skyscrapers through their engineers.
Oh, that's neat.
Which was very cool.
Yeah.
I had no idea that you could really walk through a skyscraper before it was built using VR. And their engineers sort of do that.
Oh, it's interesting. That's I think that's one of my favorite things about it, is where when you think Art Week, you tend to think traditional and things like that. We even see it in our drawing events where more and more people are showing up with iPads. And so I'm glad to see there's a lot, the video game thing and virtuality.
Right. Yeah. There's some digital photography classes that are going to be offered. Last year we had more iPhone photography sessions, walking and talking how to.
Yeah, I remember there was a selfie class or something. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah. Those are popular too.
Yeah. So obviously they've missed the deadline.
They have.
So too bad. But
you can plan for next year.
If they're planning for next year, what are some of the things they should keep in mind when planning an event, and how would they go about submitting an event?
So for anybody who's interested in submitting an event, or even into learning more about the calendar.
Or volunteering.
Because
I feel like you guys could use some help.
Go to artweekma.org and sign up for the newsletter. You can certainly follow us on social media, and that's all well and good too, but the newsletter really sort of pushes deadlines and dates and all the rest. For submitting an event for next year, we haven't even formally announced the dates.
Yeah.
But it is the last weekend in April to the first weekend in May, and that will, interestingly, coincide with the launch of Plymouth 400, which is the last Friday in May.
Oh, man.
So, in my mind, it's like, come for the launch of Plymouth 400, but stay for Art Week.
Yeah.
But that said, the website has FAQs on it, so people can find out what is an Art Week Twist, different ways to get involved. We'll announce after the close of this Art Week some of our more dates and deadlines. We're just really focused on getting this one up before we start thinking about dates for next year.
Yeah. And so when you say the ArtWeek Twist, it's so if I have a place that makes pottery, that I'm just not saying, oh, come in, we make pottery. It has to be something
special.
Yeah.
Yep. It has to be something that people can't see you do at other times a year.
Yeah.
It's not like saying every week we open our doors and do pottery demos.
Right.
That's not special enough for Art Week. It might be like...
So like Plymouth Plantation that does pottery demos every day.
Right.
That wouldn't
qualify. So they do special events like make your own Mayflower or create a lantern that will light up, or a special talk about Plymouth Rock kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it has to be special, learning-based, social-based, interactive, but something that people can't get any other time of year. And there should be some kind of learning component, we like to say. So those are, and then we sort of see, and we have a bunch of readers on the team that we bring on and train, and we go, so we need more detail here, but we coach a lot because we want to say yes.
Oh, last year we had a few, like I said, I think we had 3 or 4 events. Did we have 3 or 4 last year? 3. And, you guys reached out to us. And I mean, it would just be simple, be like, no, this doesn't qualify,
right.
But you reach out and be like, well, what can you do to make it a little different, a little special?
Yeah.
And so it really makes you kind of look and think about, like, how can I make it stand out?
Right.
What are we going to do that's a little different about it? So.
And sometimes it's partnering with somebody unusual. We've had a lot of groups that said, we've never partnered with this organization. Let's try it out and see if there's synergies. And sometimes those last throughout the year.
Yeah.
So it's easy. It's free to apply and be part of. This year we switched and tried to hopefully simplify the application process. Every accepted Art Week event gets its own web page, as I mentioned before. And this year, we haven't announced it, but I guess I am now. We're doing a direct mail piece for accepted events. They'll get a couple of posters and postcards and stickers and window decals.
Oh, I saw that on.
Everything
Yeah,
else.
I saw that as part of the application that you had to agree to display it, and I'm like, we didn't do that last year. So I immediately felt guilty. It was like, oh, I think I missed something.
We found signage makes a big difference, and a lot of people had great events but didn't do any signage. You know, there would be something great happening in the store, but there was nothing on the storefront window to get people to come in. So one of the things we're hoping is we'll have an Art Week approved event, 2019, sort of a Zagat kind of thing where you would start to collect them, hopefully, and hopefully it would build credibility with people to say, oh, this was an Art Week approved partner.
Yeah. And we talked earlier about ones or things that kind of started and carried through the whole year. So if you had an event that started and I'm just thinking, I know the Fairy Doors they did hit down here last year.
Fairy Doors, and apparently is closing before Art Week starts.
Yeah, so is that
all year?
Is that something where it ran all year? Does that then disqualify it for?
No, it would just have to have something different than. I mean, if there was a scavenger hunt offered like 10 times a year, it wouldn't be new anymore. Right. And it was new during Art Week.
Yeah.
So the criteria changes sometimes for returning events. We urge people to go back and keep reinventing.
And keep it fresh.
Yeah, that's what people want and need these days, is they're looking for sort of new and fresh. I mean, in a lot of times.
Yeah.
So.
And some of it's, like you said, can be very simple.
Yep.
Just a talk. One of our other events that is new for us, we're doing Art of Podcasting.
Yes,
So we're going to do a little talk about, how we got into podcasting and our experience over the past almost 3 years now. And
you might want to reference that article I mentioned.
Yeah,
earlier,
I got to read that now. And
it'd be a good sales material.
Well, that's usually one of the first questions when you get other people into podcasting.
Yeah.
How do you monetize? But so we're going to do that. We're going to do a Q&A and then follow it up with a live podcast.
That's great.
So that'll be a lot of fun.
And the nice thing about ArtWeek events, people are always like, well, how many people go to ArtWeek? And I say that's not necessarily a great metric, although I was going to say, I don't even know how you would count that. So we rely on people reporting back to us through surveys. But many ArtWeek events are really small and intimate, which is what makes them so special, right? Yeah. That you're not in an auditorium necessarily with 500 people. You're in a place that seats 10 people, and you're able to talk to somebody up close and personal. And so we found that a lot of times the events might be really small, but the experience is really, so in-depth that people get a lot out of it. Right.
Because the whole thing is to inspire people to do it all the time.
Right. It's not how many, it's who you touch.
Yeah. That's awesome. So where can people go online? I know you've mentioned it before, but we might as well recover it again.
Absolutely. ArtWeekMA.org. And this year, the dates are April 26th to May 5th. The calendar will go live April 1st. And then in that next week, we'll unveil some of our special programs, which I haven't talked about, which is Art of Food. Restaurants and breweries and other eateries submit art-inspired special items. Yep. So it might be a named drink after a famous piece of theater, or
raspberry sorbet.
Yeah.
No, I was trying to make a raspberry Corvette. No, raspberry beret. Now I'm screwing up the song.
Okay,
it was supposed to be a joke,
you're going down.
Yeah, never mind.
I'll use a more common one, which is there's always been a dessert that somebody offers called Strawberry Fields.
Oh, there you go.
So, but there's drinks and dinners and different plates, sandwiches. There's one a deli in Boston that brings out this one sandwich all the time that was inspired by, some movie. And it's so popular, it's on their menu now. So they keep having to think of new things. Yeah. We have art. We have Light Up the Night, where we invite towns and buildings to light up in honor of Art Week. The first night it started with the Prue and the Zachem, and now some towns are lighting up purple, and others have a statue which they're lighting up a different color.
That's cool.
So it's just a visual way to signal to people that
something's going on.
Sort of the multi-color, creativity of Art Week. Another program we have is Art Week on the Road, which features billboards. It's a partnership with Clear Channel Outdoors. And we feature different museums, visual museums, and their Art Week across the region. And this year we're starting piloting in a quiet way. The first, which is called, as part of our Destination Art Week pages, which will be up on April 5th, lodging offers.
Oh, cool.
So there'll be discounts and packages offered in honor of Art Week. So we're already getting a couple of them, some very creative packages. One up in Gloucester, which includes passes to a museum, a special tour of the history of this big old inn, and a special discounted rate. So you can't beat that.
No, not at all. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
So you can eat, you can drink, you can go away, and you can have, a great, memorable vacation.
All week.
Yeah, all week, 10 days. Can't beat it.
And so it runs April 27th. 26th?
26th. Friday the 26th till Sunday, May 5th.
May 5th.
Yep, 10 days.
And are there any specific hours for these events? Or are they kind of run the gambit?
Nope, they just run. You have to search, by times, but some are. We had one year that was a 24-hour event. It was like stay up all night. And
we've done those in the past, and I don't know if we'd ever do them again.
I know. I'm too old to do those anymore. But no, they happen at all times a day. Last year, we ran some analysis, and interestingly, 1/3 of the events happened the first weekend, 1/3 happened the second weekend, and 1/3 happened during the week.
Yeah.
So, you should be able to find something that goes with your schedule.
That's awesome. Well, I appreciate all of your work because I think it's an amazing thing that you're doing.
Well, thank you. It wouldn't. my work wouldn't happen if people like you didn't contribute such great creative events and experiences.
Well, we had such a good time last year that,
hopefully history will repeat itself.
I imagine it will. We're looking forward to it. We're already planning, obviously we're already planning our events because we had to submit them. And, but yeah, we're already going to start to post about our events because we just got approval for some of them today.
Great.
And, it's going to be a lot of fun.
It is. So
I'm going to have to take the week after off to sleep.
To recuperate.
Yeah, that's
I
what
do
I'm thinking.
say I'm more exhausted after Art Week than I am after almost anything, but I'm a happy camper. You just meet, like you said, some amazing people that you wouldn't, both the people hosting events, but the people going to events. I've met people from all over the world going to events, and the most unlikely places, people from Canada or other parts of New England who are like, this is amazing. I'm like, wow, it's my own backyard, and I didn't realize it was that amazing, but it is.
Yeah.
And then met people, like the group in Plymouth that are just so inspirational, and you take it for granted, the volunteers and the people who live, work, and play in communities, but who never stop making it where you are extra special. So it's a great 10 days.
And it's a perfect chance for everyone who complains that there's nothing going on to make something going on in their town. And if you didn't make part of it, make it this year, put something together for next year.
That's right. Start planning now.
It took us most of the year to come up with ideas. So thanks again. And thanks for coming on the
Andy.
show.
Thanks.
Okay, thanks for checking out the podcast. And don't forget to check out our other podcasts on the Inebri-Art Podcast Network. There's the Bar Talk. There's Old Colony Cast. There's, of course, the Inebri-Art Podcast. And our latest, Retro Redoctopus, a kind of nerd genre podcast that you can check out now, all available on our website at inebri-art.com. And pretty much available everywhere that podcasts are available, on Stitcher, iTunes, Google Play, Apple Podcasts, all those things. And if you don't see it where you're looking, let us know. We'll try to get onto that as well. And you can also email us at inebriart@yahoo.com with your questions, complaints, and suggestions. And also, if you could take the time to rate and review us on iTunes, that would be phenomenal. That helps us get more exposure and bring more of these great podcasts to your ears. And thanks again for listening.